Hello everyone, this is ProDeck, a slightly different video this time. We usually do Pokemon Unbroken Bonds unboxings. We're doing a review today on the Sony ZV1 or ZV1 as our American viewers like to call it. This is a vlogging camera, or is marketed as a vlogging camera, made by Sony. It costs around £660 or 750 US dollars. The sensor is a variation on the RX100 sensor, which was amazing. It's a 20 megapixel 1-inch sensor with a max resolution of 5472 by 3648 pixels. Recording at up to 30 frames per second in 4K, which is usable. The Canon M50 has 4K, but that is totally unusable, total trash. It records at up to 120 frames per second in 1080p, has a 24mm to 70mm focal length lens at f1.8 wide, wide open to f2.8, but is effectively an f2.8 lens, except for when wide open. As soon as you zoom in a tiny amount, it jumps from 1.8 to 2 and up to 2.8. Slow motion, fabulous slow motion feature on this camera. High frame rate mode of 240, 480 and 960 frames per second, but only for a few seconds. Has a 3.5mm microphone input. Has an inbuilt ND filter, which is effectively sunglasses for your camera lens, and has digital stabilization, not optical, but does a reasonable job. So let's unbox the camera and have a look at what's inside the box, and we will come back and look at some pros and cons. So this is the Sony ZV1. It says on the box, made for vlogging. Tiny little box, not much else to show you on the sleeve. It has a 1-year extended warranty pamphlet inside, and then we get to the unit itself. So we'll just never cut these things open, so we can open this up and see what's inside the box. So we have the usual pamphlets, book nobody's ever going to read. Yeah, some more paper that nobody really cares about. And then we're going to get into the box. We have our dead cat. We have him here. That's for wind noise and the microphone. For the camera itself, we have the camera, USB cable, and we have the tiny little battery that the camera uses. There is absolutely nothing else in the box. So this is where all your money has gone. We can bring the camera out, and the little battery, it uses an NP-BX1 battery, which is very small, doesn't last a great deal of time, and the wind dead cat and the camera itself. Flippy twisty screen, tiny little buttons. I mean, they really are small, so anybody with big fingers and big thumbs is going to struggle with these buttons a little, but that is essentially the camera. The battery compartment is on the bottom, which is a bit contentious, and the SD card slot. The tripod mount is extremely close to the battery compartment, and effectively covers the mount, so you cannot open the door whilst it's mounted to a tripod to replace the battery or the SD card, but you can buy a frame that sits on the bottom which moves this point further over and enables you to access this drawer, and that is definitely something that is worth doing. And the dead cat effectively goes into the hot shoe here. This is a triple microphone array, and you can simply slide your dead cat over the top of the microphone array, and that will cut out wind noise. It is really a very small camera for what is inside. It is an excellent piece of equipment. And so we're going to run through some of the pros and the cons of this device and maybe talk a little about some of its competitors. The pros are the extremely simple layout of the buttons. It's small and light at 294 grams. It's a fantastic B camera. And I would say that a GoPro Hero 9 would be a good option for a C camera. It's got a fully articulating screen which flips and twists, and it goes to the side, which is a much better option than going up, as a lot of other cameras do. So when you put something on the hot shoe, it effectively obscures your screen. It has a really fantastic autofocus system, and I say really fantastic, it is superb. It also has a product placement or product focus feature, where affect a product showcase, I think they call it, which is lightning fast. If you pick a product up and hold it up, the camera will focus immediately on this, and then as soon as you put it down, it's straight back to your face, and it works extremely well. There's no recording time limit, so it doesn't stop after 30 minutes like a lot of its competitors. It effectively will keep going as long as it has power. The built-in microphone triple array on the top with the dead cat really is excellent for a built-in microphone. Ideally, you would use an external mic anyway, but it is very good. And also the lens being f1.8 to 2.8, it is reasonable in low light for such a small sensor. Covering now some of the cons. Cropping due to stabilization modes. The higher you push the stab, the more it crops. 4K crops the image by 10% roughly, but 1080p doesn't crop, which is good unless you add stabilization. Recording in 4K with stabilization at full and wide open at 24mm, it's effectively the equivalent of 30mm with all the cropping that's going on. So for vlogging, 30mm is just way too tight, but it depends how far away you want to hold the thing. That brings us on to the focal length for vlogging. It's just not wide enough at 24, with stabilization, just far too tight. There are stick-on lens adapters you can get to effectively get an 18mm, which is where you want to be, but I certainly don't want to be buying cameras and then sticking things on the lenses. F1.8 is wide open at 24mm. As soon as you zoom, it stops up. Effectively, it will go, as soon as you touch the zoom button, it will go to f2, and then very quickly at around 32mm, it's at f2.8 for the rest of the focal range. The battery is tiny, and it typically lasts about an hour, just under an hour shooting in 4K. You're going to definitely need a lot more batteries. So I would suggest buying 3 or 4 and taking them with you. The SD card is in the battery compartment under the camera, which is not ideal and is an absolute pain to have to remove it every single time because of this. If this was located over here, it would have made life a lot easier, but you can get round that with a frame that you can buy, but you shouldn't have to really. What would I want to see in a Mark II, in a ZV1 Mark II? I'd want to see in-body stabilization, 18mm equivalent focal length, maybe an 18 to 65, bigger battery, much bigger battery, side access SD card slot, locate the tripod mount, as I said, further away from the door to make life easier. If they had those features, this would be the absolute perfect vlogging camera that nothing else would touch it. The main competitor is the Canon M50 Mark II, which has allows for interchangeable lenses. If shooting in 1080p, then the M50 could be a better option. You just have more flexibility, but in 4K, this thing wins hands down. The M50 is disgusting in 4K and it's totally unusable. So 4K, this is your option. If you want a small camera to act as a B camera, which is what I've got a G9 Panasonic with a proper Leica lens, and that's my A camera, fabulous for photography. And with the software updates that came recently for that particular camera, you know, video is great on it in 1080p. So, you know, but it's a big camera. So having this available in your bag just to pull out and use, fabulous B camera. I would say a good C camera to take along as well would be the GoPro Hero 9, but you can't really compare a GoPro Hero 9 to the ZV1. One is an action camera and one is a vlogging camera. The GoPro Hero 9 with the media kit or the media mod that you can get for it, it's not as good as this. It really isn't. But you can't take a ZV1 in the water or you know, mountain biking down a cliff, but you can with a GoPro. So they're for different use cases, but this is much better for talking head if you got a selfie stick that you can hold far enough away, living with that you know, short or focal length. So we will be doing another video soon on the Sony Bluetooth shooting grip for this camera, which we have, which is a Bluetooth grip, and we also will be doing an unboxing on the GoPro Hero 9 Black as well. So thank you for tuning in, and we will see you in the next video.